Okay, this recording was made in February of 21, and we'll start it, but I have been working for 8 years on the grading for 2 lots. And what you're looking at here is a side job that I did for my neighbor. I used to own the house that this drain goes to, and it's now in the 4th owner. It's got 4 owners so far in 20 years. But I used to own the house, and I knew inherently there was a problem with drainage with the house. And the 3rd person that owned it, I became acquainted with him. Nice guy, super nice guy from California. But he didn't know what I knew. And I tried to convince him for years that, and when we get a good shot here of everything, all right. What I had known for years about this house is it got graded, reverse grading. They did what I call reverse engineering. All these houses were on the plans, the grading maps for all the houses. These houses, the lot was intended to drain onto the golf course. But if you know anything about golf course tribal knowledge and golf course construction tribal knowledge, the golf course is the golden goose. Any thought of it being a sacrificial lamb in a monsoon, forget that. So what they did is all the houses that north of the golf course, where water comes from to drain onto the golf course, they tamper with the lots. They raise the property line sometimes 3 feet, and then they'll put a berm between the property line and the patio. So what I'm going to tell you is right here, for years and years, over here, right here, along here this was 21, so for 16 years, 17 years, every time we got a real heavy rainstorm or rain that went on for days at a time, we would get a moat in front of this, and we would get a lake here, landlocked. Okay, I'm going to stop from time to time too, but I never got gutters onto this house. I sold this house before I found out what the builder had done. Now, what you see over here is that's a sifter. And this my friend who working with me. But what we did is we buried that line. If I can go back here and show you, this line right here is perforated alligator. It comes in a box, and you stretch it out, and it becomes 3 inches in diameter, and it's perforated. Then you put this sock over it. Well, what was happening, and this is a good picture to show you. Up until this job was done, every time there was a rainstorm, a squall, a deluge, we'd get a lake right here, landlocked. Couldn't go anywhere, stayed there. Same thing here, because they reverse engineered. All these lots up here north of the golf course, north of the 6th hole, were supposed to drain onto the golf course. And along with the landscaping crews that came in here and the builder crew, what they did is they put small depressions between the houses and reverse engineering. The idea was to keep as much water onto these lots in a storm as possible. Anything that made it to the street would burden the lake, Sundance Lake, because that's ultimate retention. And we have a 24-inch pipe, only one for 13 acres. But what we had was we used to get a lake here, and around this bush, uh, I I don't think we had started working it yet, but they had a depression there. So all the water that came off the roofs up here, all the houses, all the water that came off the roof couldn't get to the property line. It was landlocked someplace on the lot. And so I broke that cycle. But like I said, the fellow that moved in here, nicest guy, it took a long time to convince him that, the lot is screwed up. They did it on purpose. It's not draining right. And he listened to me, but he didn't want to really take any moves that might upset the HOA or whatever. But I finally, when he saw me working, and let's start this again. And if I see anything where I need to stop again. But here I had just put in a 3-inch line going from the downspout to the property line, a full 3-inch line. And what you see here is a brand new PVC irrigation line. I re-engineered all that. I took it up and re-engineered it. But that job was done, and I finally convinced the guy after he brought in a contractor. He brought in a drain specialist to take a look, and the guy told him right out, he says the drainage is all screwed up. Now what this fella's doing, if you see the rock, we'll talk about this rock. What he's doing is sifting rock. And all the rock that went in, we're filling it in. This was a water line that we were careful with. We didn't break it. That waters his plants. But this rock that's going in there has, that rock won't go through a 1/2-inch sister. So all the sand and all the pebbles have been taken out of it. So it's going to drain, and hopefully it drains into the pipe, and the pipe will route it off to the, but he's sifting rock, and when he sifts it, that's what we're putting in the ditch. And now the water can get off his lot. I have a video that shows that no matter how hard it's raining now, the water has a way to get to the property line from that corner. You see, he has a screen. That's a 1/2-inch screen. Now, let me see here when I can stop it. Now this is, I did this for my neighbor. This isn't even my lot, but I used to own it, and I take pride in knowing that I fixed the drainage on it. I take pride in knowing that I corrected this drainage problem. But it took a long time to convince the owner to let me do this. But what we're doing now is my method to keep plants off my yard and to help with drainage is I put landscape fabric down first. Weeds don't tend to grow on the landscape fabric. And then I take all the rock and sand, or the pebbles and sand, and this is all top rock. This is rock that's going to go on top. The landscape fabric disappears, and we have good drainage rock. That rock doesn't hold water. It's not sand. This isn't pebbles. And when a plant grows into, their roots grow on top of the landscape fabric, so you don't have to spray. Once in a while, once a week, you go out, and if you see little plants started, you pull them up, and they're just sitting on top of. They're not embedded. You can get them out. But let's move on. But we're filling it in, and the job is near done. But this is a lot of work. You see, he's sifting it, and then we're going to put it over the landscape fabric. And I have another piece of pipe to take it all the way to the property line. But this is what I did for my neighbor's house. It was my labor. He might have bought some landscape fabric, but it was my labor. And if you can see, I had just done all this work what I had done is, this was the second time I had to work this. I worked it about 5-6 years ago, and I had plastic and tar paper. I had graded it in plastic and tar paper because water was, like I said, a lake was forming around this bush. And that's another thing the contractor did when he came in. He took a ditching tool, and we made a ditch to the sidewalk from where the water used to collect here. But we used to get a lake here, a landlocked lake here, and a landlocked lake in front of the patio. And the motive behind that is, when they built the golf course, we don't want any water running onto our golf course. It's the golden goose. It's revenue. It's cash register. We don't want it shutting down for 1 minute, okay? Even though we're supposed to drain all those lots, and the purpose of the golf course is a recreation area where water goes in a storm, no way, okay? Those people up there, just like when you bought a house on a golf course, it's no different than when they say you get a broken window because the tee box is too close, and the first thing they say is, well, you knew you were buying on a golf course. Well, I'll tell you, not only do you have to do with stray golf balls and broken windows from a golf course, you got to deal with this from a golf course. Because the golf course builders 20 years ago understood we don't want any water that makes it to the street or onto the course. On the back side of the house, we don't want the water onto the course, and from the front side of the house, we want that lot to take a bit of water before it finally defeats and gets to the sidewalk. So if we get 4 or 5 days of rain, we get a good storm, and it makes the lake, the next day it soaks in, and the next day it happens again. That cycle happens over and over. Okay, it happens over and over. But I did want to make this because this was February of 21. Okay, I had done a lot of work up to this point. Like I said, I had to tear all this up. I had plastic and tar paper here, but I had a leak. I had about 3 leaks along here in that old black plastic builder special, and it gets aneurysms. So I had done the work. We were just about done, and now we were finishing up, and I still had to bring in more rock and sift it to cover this. And we did his house first. We did landscaping. There's landscaping fabric here. The guy had trenched it out and made the water run to, and then we were doing it here, and I showed you what we did with that. But this was keeping me busy, and I had to do this at my expense with no engineering help, because I understood what the builders and the reason they did what they did. Okay, they wanted the more water a lot could hold. That was the water that the street and the pipe didn't have to deal with. The one pipe for 13 acres. All right, we're trying to keep as much water out of that pipe as we can. We're going to try to keep as much water on the lots as we can. All right. Just a little tribal knowledge about golf course developments. All right. I'm going to put this on YouTube right now. But that's just to satisfy the HOA, to satisfy people out there, the ones that are trying to I have a lawsuit, and I have a lawsuit for this period of time. And while I was doing all this work right here, I was getting no letters. I was very visible on the street, but it was understood. I don't know if this guy told the HOA he's fixing my drainage. And everybody on the street here, I didn't start getting letters until April. This was February. I had this all tore up, and I wasn't getting any letters. Everybody across the street saw what I was doing, and I wasn't getting letters. Okay? Thank you for listening. Don't ever buy in an HOA. Really. If you have independent thought, if you can think, if you can reason legally, if you have any kind of legal sense or sense of right and wrong or fair play, you don't want to get involved with an HOA. Or honesty, you don't want to get involved with an HOA. Thank you for listening.